Hi, this is Cherie Dortch, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and trained psychoanalytic psychotherapist. You can reach me at cdorchtherapist.com or receive any information about my private practice there. Today you will see a video on sexual trauma as well as suicide and depression.
Thoughts of suicide may feel impossible to overcome, but with help and support, you can find hope and meaning. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK to speak to a counselor, or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even if it feels like it, you are not alone.
Welcome to Choose Love with Cherie. Today we're here with Cindy, Wayne, and Kunal, who's another therapist. He works with me. He's my partner. And today we're going to talk about suicide. I just found out as I'm doing the research before I'm doing this video is suicide is the 10th ranking cause of death, and it outranks homicide. So that means it's a real problem with suicide. So today we're going to talk about some people who have experienced depression and who have actually contemplated suicide. So I'm going to start with Wayne.
Hello.
Hi, Wayne. So how long have you suffered from depression?
I guess I really can say I was thinking back on it now. I was probably really suffering from it starting from like 13.
Okay. And what were some of the symptoms you experienced that led you to believe or know or understand that you were suffering from depression?
Well, I can point them out now, but back then I obviously didn't know. But it was low self-esteem, fear of displeasing others, especially my father at that time, and fear of rejection from females at that time as well. All that combined, I guess, took a toll on me, and I thought life sucked.
Okay. So when did you start having suicidal thoughts?
Right around that time, my first thought of actually killing myself was jumping off the high school building that I lived by.
So let's move forward to the time when you actually tried to commit suicide.
Oh, the first time I was 16. I had recently just started a job. I went on vacation with my parents. Came back. There was a situation where things got hectic at my household between my friends and my family, and cops were involved, so I was kind of beating myself up about that situation. And then I started the new job again once I came back from vacation and got fired from that job pretty much right when I came back. So those two situations weighed heavily on me. And
okay, so excuse me. So tell me, because I want everybody to get an idea of what you were feeling internally when all of this happened.
That was worthless. Well, what am I really doing here if all I'm doing is upsetting people?
Okay, was there any pain?
Yeah, to just waking up. Like I didn't.
Can you tell me what the pain was?
I don't want to say it was pain, or more like paralyzing, because I just didn't want to move. When that situation happened, before I actually attempted, I was in bed for about a week, and I didn't eat or do anything. I was just in bed all day.
16?
Yeah.
Did your parents question why you had been in bed? Or?
No, they knew, I was upset at myself because of the situation, but I don't think they thought it was as serious as I was thinking it was in my head. And after a week of doing that, just being in bed, I just finally just decided to attempt it. I went into my backyard. I had some rope that my father had in the chair, found a tree branch, So I had the noose and all, but I couldn't, I guess, go through with it because I just kept seeing my mom's face, and I didn't know how I couldn't go with that thought in my head.
One thing I want to point out for everybody out there is that when someone is depressed, well, when someone has a situation where it creates guilt, it definitely creates depression. And as you can see, he experienced a lot of guilt, and that's what led him to decide that he wanted to take his life. A sense of hopelessness, and it's a feeling that things are never going to get better. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you get into therapy after that?
No.
Okay.
Actually, once that happened, I didn't even tell anybody. Nobody knew about it. I didn't tell anybody. I just went back to life as regularly as I could. And then I didn't think I had another attempt until my probably mid-20s.
Mm-hmm. The same thing.
Yeah, for the most part. I was in a fairly new relationship that escalated or progressed rather quickly. And I thought I could be someone that she could depend on for help. She also suffered from depression.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that maybe we could help each other. And it didn't work out that way.
So what led you to the second attempt?
Taking on her depression, I guess. Is that a phrase you can use?
And can you expound on that in what way?
Just how she was going through her depression, how she was dealing with it. I empathized maybe a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that, I tried to help more, and I think that hurt me at the same time. And it just got to the point where I felt like, again, there was nothing I was doing to help her. There's nothing I could do to help myself.
So again, you felt some guilt about not being able to help her.
Yeah. And I just, I called her.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it was the early morning. I called her and told her to try and enjoy life without me. Something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what was said, but I left that message and I attempted, and once again, I was trying to do the hanging, and this time I just couldn't go through with it because I couldn't sit there and suffer suffocating for air. So it's like the only way that was going to happen if I had a gun or something. Mm-hmm. Something quick and easy. But I couldn't do that, so it didn't happen, and I ended up in the hospital. And I was on psych watch or on the psych floor, and that's when I found out, after the first day or two there, that's when I found out that my wife at the time she went through with it and killed herself. So.
And that must have created even more guilt for you.
Yeah. I guess it's still some guilt that I have to deal with to this day, but it's not on the scale that's really, I guess, hindering me.
What makes it different for you now?
I have an understanding now from therapy.
Okay, so what happened for you in therapy?
I think with therapy finally, because I was going to therapy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to do anything for me. I was just doing it to get everybody off my back. But then, I want to say, I had gone through like maybe 4 or 5 therapists. I want to say it was like the second to last one. Like the one before I had you, I actually learned something that helped me see the root, I guess, of where I always had these feelings of not being worthy or guilty or all those feelings. I found out why I was having them and why I internalized them the way I did.
But then after that, you still try to commit suicide again.
Even knowing that, at that point. but therapy helping me see the root of it all. Just helped me have a better understanding, be able to continue, I guess, living without so much hurt or pain from the depression.
What has kept you from committing suicide? From how long ago was that? The last?
Let's see, that happened in about 2011, 2010. Oh, 2010.
So it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so what has kept you from trying to commit suicide again?
The continuation of growth, reading, therapy, those things combined just help you get through the day to day. And if you start applying the things that you are learning, you start seeing that it's actually something that helps and something that I think everybody needs in their life.
I want everybody to understand that, suicide is about pain. It's about inner pain. It's about feeling that there's no way out of the pain. I think a lot of people make comments about, oh, life can't be that. I've heard it. Life can't be that bad. Life can't be that hard. But if you are in a place where you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then some people just feel like, I'm just going to end it here because I don't see any other way out. Kunal, you want to add to that?
First, I want to say thank you, Wayne, for sharing what you did share, because that was very courageous. The way mental health has that stigma now, a lot of people don't want to share what they're going through. And, whoever is watching this video now may be empowered to go and seek help, and they could feel like, someone else feels the way I felt or how I'm feeling now. So, that is an empowering story that you shared there. But yes, like, Cherie said, that it's what's going on inside of you, the pain that you have. Just put a little something into what, just briefly share what I've witnessed recently was a close family friend, almost like a family member. She was 15 years old and she committed suicide. And, her family, their first thing is why? And, as a therapist, you hope that you could tell a person why, but it's not realistic to know why unless that person shares why. But, the thing about it was that she had some inner pain, things that she was battling years on years probably. And she reached that point in that tunnel where she felt that, it's time for me to not continue to look for that light, to stop there. And it devastated the whole family, of course. And Wayne, as you mentioned, you were thinking about what your mom would see, how your mom would feel. And, at sometimes we make those decisions. We may have these temporary feelings and we make these permanent decisions. And that's where mental health steps in helping yourself understand why I'm thinking like this, why I'm behaving like this, why I'm feeling like this. And also finding ways to have some coping techniques, like you said as well. Now I'm starting to use my tools. That's preventing me from going down that road. I still have the thoughts, they still ruminate, but I have the strength now to go in a different route, and which is the strength itself. We look at mental health in a sense of you go into the gym, you working out, you can count how much you're lifting on the bench press. Mental health is almost the same way. So you're getting these tools, you're getting these strengths, and you're measuring your strength now. Okay, I'm having these thoughts 3 times a day, but I'm not acting on it. Now I'm having these thoughts maybe once a week. It's measurable now. Do you think also that, I think Wayne had more of a sense of hope. He learned a lot. One of the things I have to share is that
I was his therapist, and one of the things I did differently with him was that I introduced him to a lot of spiritual principles, and he was able to use that. I had another therapist say, "Oh, that's so unethical," because he actually went to my spiritual center with me once a month. That was our appointment time, that one Saturday a month. But he was able to learn. He was able to be with a community who was very welcoming. They welcomed him in, and they helped him through. They also guided him and helped him. So I went above and beyond with him because I was just very much concerned, and I felt like he was in a community. I'm not going to mention what community, but he was in a community that was supposed to be about God and love, but they weren't showing loving ways to him. They kind of ostracized him because of what he had done. And I couldn't understand that. I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense to me. So all of those things, and even now he's able to. You're not really in therapy the way you were, but he reaches out when he needs to. So I'm available to him when he needs me to be. So there was some transference going on with him because he was the same age as my son. So I was very concerned about him. He was around my son's age, I should say. So I was very concerned about him. But I do feel like people need to be able to reach out to somebody and get help or talk to someone. Don't just feel like you're alone, because there's someone out there just like you that may have the same feelings, and they may know a little more than you know about where to get help and who to get help from and how to cope. So we're going to speak really quickly to Cindy about her story and her journey and how she was able to overcome those feelings and ideas.
Thoughts of suicide may feel impossible to overcome, but with help and support, you can find hope and meaning. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK to speak to a counselor, or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. It's free, it's confidential, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even if it feels like it, you're not alone.
Okay, so next up we have Cindy. She's going to share with us her journey and her story about suicide or a suicidal ideation.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say, since I was a little girl, I always felt like I didn't fit in. Just never seemed to mesh with my family. Never felt like I fit in. Mm-hmm. And things went on as younger, and I blamed myself for everything, and had an issue with rejection or feeling rejected. So fast forward to about 14 years old, I had lost my grandfather. My grandfather was one of the few people in my life that was very accepting of me. Mm-hmm. My family was very odd because back, I'm talking about like the 50s and 60s. My father was Italian. My grandparents were off the boat, My mother's family were they were German French, they had money, they were, living here a lot longer. There was not an acceptance of my father. Mm-hmm. The marriage was not accepted. My mother changed her religion. So there was a lot of fighting in my family growing up. And I looked Italian, mm-hmm. so it caused a lot of issues for my mother's side of the family, and they were not very nice to me. So, which added to everything. Mm. My Italian grandfather was my Italian grandparents were very accepting of me, and I felt like I belonged there. I didn't belong with my mother's family. I didn't look like them. They were blonde, blue-eyed. Did not fit in there. Did not belong there. So when he died, I was 14. And I took it as a really bad hit. And at the time, it was very interesting. My older sister had a boyfriend, and it was not long after my grandfather died. I was very depressed about it. He was my bond. And they were going out, and I asked to go along. They were 17, I was 14, and my sister's boyfriend turned to me. He goes, "You're not invited. Nobody wants to be around you." So they left, and I was home alone. So that, those voices in your head, those demons, they tell you nobody likes you, no one accepts you.
You're bad.
See, your whole life, you didn't fit in. This is why, because you're just not worthy. So, we're talking about like 1976, so it wasn't a lot of, so what I did was I lined up all my parents' alcohol and I proceeded to drink it. And I drank till I was unconscious. So when my parents came home, they found me unconscious. Luckily, I never vomited and aspirated, because that would be the way. But at the time, my 14-year-old little brain said, oh, I could drink myself to death. And I literally drank every alcohol. I mixed it. And I had alcohol poisoning. So didn't go to the hospital, didn't go to the doctor, because in my family in that time, you don't tell anybody anything that goes on in your house. In fact, my father would say to me, if I hear outside this house, you told anybody what goes on in this house, you're done. That's it. That's unacceptable. So, things went on. They ignored it. No one ever asked me why I did it. They just got me sober, and life went on. And then I would say the second time I attempted, I was 19. And again, the rejection thing, abandonment rejection is my theme of when it really used to send me over the edge. I was dating my husband now, but at the time he was my boyfriend, and he dumped me cold. He went back to his old girlfriend. And he basically had said to me, I never loved you, blah, blah, blah. He really went home. I got out of the car, went in the house, my parents were home, and I basically swallowed, at the time all I could find were aspirins, and swallowed a bottle of aspirins. But, the weird thing is, you sit there, and I don't know what a bottle of aspirins, I just didn't think. It was very impulsive, not really thought out, not really just, nobody loves me, nobody wants me, what am I here for? And I took the bottle, and I did tell my parents, because afterwards I'm got scared, and they made me vomit. But again, it was brushed under the carpet.
So you never went to the hospital?
No.
They never had you talk to anyone?
No. That was the shame. That's the shame.
Right.
Because this was about 1981.
I think that's still there, though.
Yes.
I mean, it's more prevalent now for people to get help, but I think you still have some people.
Yeah, and you know what? It goes on. I mean, even with when I had my daughter, I had postpartum depression, and I remember going to, and this was 1990. Thank God that's changed. I was so depressed. I was really needed help, and I go to the obstetrician. I said to him, my 6-week checkup, I told him how I was feeling. He's like, what do you expect? You just had a baby, and blew that under the table. I'm so glad I hear now that it isn't that way, but I think, I was lucky in the sense that the what I had tried to do, obviously, were kind of not really going, you know what I'm saying? There was a good chance. It wasn't like I picked up a gun, didn't have access to that. Right. Would I have done it if I'd access? It's possible. Probably, because I'll be honest with you, in that moment, you're thinking you're garbage, you are worthless. Why are you here? Nobody wants you. Nobody loves you.
And then that's painful. That somebody.
It's very painful. And there's voices. You hear them in your head. And do I still hear them? Listen, those are the 2 times I tried it. But to be honest with you, do I, at my age now, have thoughts like that? Yes.
Have you gotten into therapy since then?
I'm in therapy now because I had an incident with friends a few months ago where they kind of turned on me. And, there you go, that rejection again.
So this is what happens with that, because what looks the same, sounds the same, is the same to the unconscious. So your body and everything is responding to something from your past.
Yes.
We're all living in the past.
Yes.
So, it's a buildup of all of that. So that's the pain that you're feeling from every time that you were rejected, abandoned. In the present, you're feeling that same pain.
Yes, and I know those because I went to therapy and I said to her, this is what it is for me, rejection.
Yeah.
Of feeling abandoned, because that's what I felt as a kid.
But I'll tell you this, one thing that you can work on as well. When you realize that if something happens in the present, like say something happened with your friends and they did something and you felt rejected, you have to remember that this feeling that I'm having right now was a past feeling. This may not be what it is right now. So that's something I tell a lot of my clients to remember that, okay, even myself. So I worked in the police department for years and I hated it. So if somebody in a new job that I'm in, if something happens and it's similar, which I can't think of anything really, but I'm just using this as an example. If I get that same feeling that I had when I worked, I go, okay, this is not then. This is not where I was. This is not, Chief Russo, or,
Right.
you know, I have to remind myself so that way I won't respond the same. So we have to remember that a lot of our stuff, a lot of our feelings are from the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think childhood is, for such a short period of our existence, is the most important period of our existence because, you know, those voices I hear in my head are the voices of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's very hard. And I'm 56 years old, and I work very hard to change the script in my head, and I do, but do you know, in those low moments, that old script comes back.
Yes, because that's exactly what it is, and that's where the depression comes in, when we have those negative thoughts, and we have to say to ourselves, that's not true. I mean, even, we all do it, right? So, like, you know, if I have to go and do something, I got to go speak in front of a camera, and I go and I start telling myself all these stories about you can't do it, or this is what's going to happen, and I go, that's not true, because I know what I'm doing, I know I can do this, but everybody does that. They tell themselves stories about what's happening, so you got to change the story. Change the story.
Yep.
So do you feel like therapy helped you?
I definitely, I'm back in it. I'm glad. I got, like, encouraged to go back. Shannon, my daughter Shannon, was one of the people that encouraged me to go back, and because it can be hard to just mesh it up again, you know what I'm saying? And my whole family, my parents, my sister, my whole family are gone. I don't have them anymore. So it's not like I can fix a relationship with anybody at this point. It's done. It's done for me. But what I want to do is fix me and fix relationships I have going forward.
Right.
To be honest with you, it's about my relationship to other people and not replaying something from my childhood.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
So I think, you know, I would be a lie to say that there aren't dark moments where I really am basically on my knees, like thinking, what is it all worth? But then I think, I'll be honest with you, the one thing that keeps me going is my daughter. You know, she's the love of my life. I would never hurt it, and I know it's painful. To suicide is to leave behind a trail of pain that never really is going to be healed.
Right.
And I wouldn't do that to anybody I love. And that's really what it comes down to.
That's usually some of the protective factors. It's people having children. Kunal, you want to talk about some of the protective factors?
Like I said, you know, these are courageous dialogues that we're having right here. So sharing that is important. And what you did also was you brought up the way people thought in the past, compare how it is now, and the awareness of mental health. So, you know, asking for help is hard when your parents are saying, don't tell our business. You better not leave the front door.
I'm sure people still do that.
And it's still like that. And even people who get help, it's, let's say a child goes into the psychiatric emergency room now, it's really the family secret and the provider. Nobody's sharing it within any relatives in the home. A lot of that happens. And, you know, it's like, she'll be fine or he'll be fine kind of thing. But is she or he fine, you know? So it's important to identify those protective factors. When you go into the emergency room, they try to see what makes life worth living for you, right? So you're going to be identifying when you're thinking futuristic, if you're young, I want to get married, I want to have kids, or I want to go to college, and thinking of goals that will keep you motivated to be here. Who's important to you? When you're at this moment, what's something that could pull you out? Anything. So now building your skills, your coping skills up, you know.
It's a lifetime.
And it's
Sometimes
ongoing.
it can be, it can
It's
be
a lifetime.
sometimes.
It's ongoing.
Because even different stages of your life require different skills sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is people learning how to manage and understand that they have more control over their life than they realize. You know, I think that was one of the things that I helped Wayne with, is you have more control than you realize. Everybody is looking outside of themselves and pointing their fingers, but if you work within yourself, you have a lot more control than you realize in your own life. So I think that's something that we need to talk about. But I do want to give a phone number. I don't know by heart. National Suicide Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. If anybody has a friend, themselves, they feel like they need to talk to someone, they can call the National Suicide Hotline. And you can always call me, 516-873-6374. If I can refer you to someone, I will be happy to do that. I thank everybody for listening to this segment, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Suicide is a desperate attempt to escape suffering that has become unbearable. Suicide affects not only you, but others around you, ones who loved and still love you. Everyone's life is valuable and shouldn't be taken for temporary reasons.
Welcome back to Choose Love with Cherie. So now we will be speaking about sexual trauma today. This time we'll be speaking about that. So I have here with me today Shannon and Sarah, and I still have Kunal with me, and we're going to talk about their experience and the sexual trauma that they've experienced. So we'll start with Shannon.
Alright, so when I was 19, I was sexually assaulted by my boyfriend at the time's cousin. He forced himself upon me and was touching me very sexually. And my boyfriend at the time was actually sitting right there, not paying attention, didn't really care. How I got out of it was I don't know, I somehow got out of it, and I locked myself in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't have my cell phone on me, but I pretended to have my cell phone on me. And I pretended like I was going to call the police.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cousin kind of left. And then afterwards, my boyfriend at the time blamed me and said it was my fault because I was pretty.
Oh,
So.
okay. So he didn't do anything. He just touched you and...
Yeah, like he attempted to like go underneath my clothing and things like that.
And your boyfriend blamed it on you.
Yes.
Wow. So how did that affect you as far as your relationship?
It ended shortly after.
Okay.
I shut down a lot after that. I was away at school at that point, so him and I were not living, we were like an hour or two away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped answering my phone, we stopped talking, the relationship really came to an end, and we kind of just drifted.
Do you feel like some of it was, your feeling this way had something to do with your feelings about him blaming you?
Yeah, definitely. Because I ended up disclosing it to a friend of mine at school, and she as well said it was my fault for putting myself in that situation. So there was a lot of like blaming that I was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely felt shut down, and I didn't talk about it for a while. I kind of tried to put it away and pretend it wasn't there, but it
And
was.
how do you feel like that whole scenario affected you?
Like in the long?
Mm-hmm.
I think it definitely made me more self-conscious. Trust is a huge issue
In relationships?
in relationships. That's my focus in my own therapy, is establishing and building trust, and also kind of understanding that not everyone is going to hurt me.
So that's what I was going to ask you next, is being able to talk about it in therapy. What kind of changes has it made for you?
It's definitely improved my relationships. Like specifically with my current relationship, it's been a lot better. I am able to kind of catch myself when I'm when maybe he hasn't done anything, but I'm kind of projecting onto him past emotions and past treatment. I'm able to be more aware of that now and view people as individuals instead of just like grouping them together.
Was that your first relationship?
It wasn't necessarily my first, but it was like the serious. First serious.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought that.
Yeah.
Because you really took what he said to heart.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't have anything in mind to say right now. You know,
Or to ask.
But, you know, I heard you say that the people, such as the boyfriend, your friend, they blamed you. And at any point, did you feel like you were blaming yourself for what happened?
Yeah, no, I definitely did feel that way. Like, I know then, like, I would kind of replay it in my head, and I was like, well, I shouldn't have sat in the couch next to him. Like, there was definitely blame.
That goes back to my saying that I might have shared with you. If somebody tells you you're a horse once, you'll say whatever. Anyway, the second time you think about it, and the third time you buy yourself a saddle. Because if everybody keeps telling you this story over and over, well, it was your fault, you'll be like, oh, it must have been. You know, instead of being and living in your truth. When you get to an understanding that what I just said about the horse and the saddle, then you'll know that that does not necessarily mean everybody has their own perception of, you know, what happens, and that doesn't have to be your story. You know, you don't have to take that in as your own. So, thank you for sharing that.
Well, son, all people go through their own problems. Some big, some small. But one thing is certain about every one of them, they pass. And so will yours. Maybe not soon, but they'll pass. And if that doesn't work, there are a few things I can teach you. I used to be young too.
High school can be a really harsh place, and it's a really difficult time right now. I want you to know that you are not the only one that feels this way, and you are not alone. And even though the stress right now is overbearing, there are a ton of people who care about you, and they matter so much more than the people today. You need to know you can always communicate when you need someone to talk to. And I want to show you the back of your ID card so that you can see another reference for getting help. Thanks. Okay, look at the back of your ID card and the bottom of it for the Teen Lifeline number.
Honestly, you shouldn't worry about what they say. Just worry about yourself.
Yeah, just don't give them the saddest time.
Or you could try making friends with him. You never know how they might act.
Don't worry about it, dude. You'll be fine.
This is Sarah. She's going to share with us her story of being I think it sounds more of a domestic issue of abuse, right?
I would say so.
Okay, so because you were in a relationship. So share with us what happened.
So I was with my boyfriend, and as most abusive relationships starts, he was very kind and funny, and I, always had a good time with him.
The charmer.
Yeah, and then, later on in our relationship, I started noticing, sometimes he would tell me that I'm not good enough or, for something, or that I should look nicer or something like that. And we started out with that, but then later, the sexual aspect came into play, and I was a virgin at the time, when I was with him. And before I went to, this was in California, where I'm from, and before I went to New York for undergrad, he was kind of like, you should let me have sex with you, like, we should have sex before you leave. And I didn't really want that, but after a while I started thinking, oh, well, I mean, maybe I should, we're going to be long distance, and I should give him that.
So there was some fear there.
Yeah. And it was more so like I should give him this. Like,
was it that, or was it just some fear that if I don't give him this, then maybe he'll leave, maybe he'll get it from someone else because I'm on the other side of the country?
I think partially that, but also a little bit for myself as well. Like, oh, I'm going into college. A previous boyfriend had wanted that before he went to college, and I was like, well, shouldn't I want this? So I just kind of let that happen. It was kind of a traumatic experience that first time, because I was somewhat excited, but not I didn't really want it. I decided afterwards, because looking back on it, it's easier to see hindsight 2020. But he bought ribbed condoms, and it's my first time, so that's definitely not for that. So, he buys them, and it hurt really bad, and I bled a lot, and it was just really traumatic and stuff. But then, I went to college, and then I would come back for, and we were in a long distance relationship for like 3 years. And I would come back, and he would be like, oh, let's have sex because you're never here. So we'd do it again, and I just still didn't really like it that much. It was still always a little bit painful. I don't think I ever got really comfortable enough, but he wanted it, and I couldn't tell him no, or else I thought that he wouldn't hit me, but he would get mad and say it's my fault. And for the short amount of time that I was with him in person, I didn't want to be fighting. I didn't want to feel like I was the worst girlfriend ever.
There's a theme here. It's a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
And guilt creates depression.
Yeah. So I actually went into depression during the relationship a few times, and then after I broke up with him, almost 3 years into our relationship, I broke up with him because he gave me an ultimatum of marry me or we wasted our time. And I was still in college. So I was like, I don't know what to do with that. I want to graduate college, and I want to do all of these things. I don't necessarily want to move back to my rinky-dink hometown in the mountains in California. So I broke up with him, and I went into a really deep depression where I had some suicidal ideation. And I felt like my body wasn't my own. I felt like, my decisions weren't my own. And I had a really hard time with that.
What was it like for you before you got into a relationship with him?
We had a friendship, actually. It was a short friendship, but, we were friends, and we were in the same high school class.
Was he your first boyfriend?
No.
You mentioned another boyfriend.
No, I had a few previous boyfriends, but he was the first person I had ever had sex with.
Right.
And then it kind of went a different way. After that, I actually realized that my sexuality is demisexual. So for those of you who don't know, demisexuality is a subsect of asexuality, in which you are not sexually attracted to someone unless you have an emotional, spiritual, intellectual connection with them and feel very safe.
Well, everybody should be that then, because that's how it should be, right? It should be where you feel safe and have an attraction and emotionally attracted to that person, right? When you're looking at me like, yeah.
No, it's like, I feel like the world portrays sex as just something just to be having out there, and I don't know if it's because I'm softy or what.
No, you're not a softy.
I feel like those moments, or in that moment, that it's a certain connection that you have with somebody, and it can't be with everyone, or it can't be with
just a random person, just any old body. I feel the same. I'm demisexual too. Because first of all, I have this feeling of I believe that we exchange energy when we're in a sexual union. So you're taking on everything that person, their demons and everything that's going on with that person. You taking it on, and if you think about someone that you've had sex with in the past, you can probably pinpoint that and say, this is what was happening in my life. This is what this person was going through, and we do exchange that. So I think that's important. Kunal, did you want to say something?
What I saw as like the common denominator relationship was the power and control. And when it comes to domestic violence, and we call the victim the survivor, right? They're educated when they seek services, whether it's domestic violence counseling, things of that nature. They're educated on power and control. And there's also counseling for those who are the aggressors, the batterers. There's batterers accountability. And they're educated on how their behaviors compromise the relationship, And it sounds like, he took away those things as far as you feeling open to that experience. It was like, all right, he gave me an ultimatum in the beginning, and he gave me an ultimatum at the end. And by 3 years, you were like, you know what? Enough is enough.
But then he also, in the beginning, he talked about how you should be this, or you should look like this. That's a sense of control. I don't think a lot of women realize that, that when someone comes and they're trying to tell you about how you're not good enough in some way, right? That's trying to have control over you.
Yeah, and it was classic, manipulative.
Yeah, very manipulative. I actually had someone say to me once, tell me something that you are insecure about. And I laughed because I was like, okay, you're talking to the wrong person, because I already knew what was happening. It's like you're trying to find something that I'm uncomfortable with about myself, so you can just prey on that in a way, and use that. And to try to knock me off my pedestal, I guess, so to speak. But that doesn't work, because I have a little bit more insight than that. I mean, I think that's why I do what I do, because I've kind of always had that.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to get really much more comfortable with myself. I still struggle.
Are you in therapy?
Yeah, I'm in therapy. I'm a mental health counseling student as well. So I'm in therapy because, that it's a good route to go when you're going to be doing therapy. And also, I think that it's really helpful to know more about yourself.
Absolutely.
To grow. I think I didn't know enough about myself. I only knew the piece that he told me. But I've grown a lot since then. I have a healthy relationship now in which we are talking about getting married.
That's good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So as everyone can see, the importance of seeking help and getting into therapy, because it is about growth. It's not about being crazy. It's about growth. It's about learning who you are. As a therapist, and Shannon and Sarah are both mental health counseling students. So, and I tell all my students that if you want to be a great counselor or you want to be a great therapist, you have to be in your own therapy, because you have to learn about who you are before you can help anybody else. And you learn. You still learn as you go. The people I see in therapy, I'm still learning. I still learn through them. So it's very important to get help. Everybody get help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Thank you for watching. Watch my next video. Don't know what it's going to be on yet, but you'll see me soon. Relationships. All right. Thank you, guys.
Hi, this is Cherie Dortch.